everyone, Matt here again on the Vinyl Head UK channel. How are we all doing? I've got another brilliant record that I've added to my collection recently that I want to show to you guys and for all of us to appreciate once again. So, we have covered the definitive British metal band already, Iron Maiden, but I have an equally important British metal band that I want to show you guys. Definitely a band that has gone on to influence many more metal bands into the modern era. All right, and they are from Birmingham, the home, the birthplace of heavy metal, a place I grew up very close to. So a place I hold in my heart still. I always love going back to Birmingham and reliving and seeing the history of where metal came from. But without further ado, I have for you Judas Priest, Sin After Sin, the third studio album by the band and the first on a major record label. So this record I found about a week or so ago in my local record store. Let me tell you about it. So, in town there's a little record store. I say little, it's tiny. You can literally fit about 2, maybe 3 people in at once. So I've been there once already. And then my dad was up visiting. My parents were up visiting. My dad was up visiting. And I said, let's go check it out. There might be some stuff in there that you can find. So this store, it's kind of an age. There isn't really anything modern that you can find in there. So if you're looking for latest releases or anything really within the last 20 years, you probably won't find it. It's like an archive. It's full of vinyl. It's full of CDs. It's full of cassettes. It's even got VHS in there. All right. It's like a time warp, this place. But we went in. We had a good look through. There's, as you can imagine, tiny little place. So all the records are cramped in every possible space. We were looking through and we found a few records. We found Sin After Sin by Judas Priest, Back in Black by AC/DC, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath. Now, all of these were first pressings, which was pretty cool to find. The guy who owns the store, he's very lenient and he lets you have a real good look at the records, check them out, look at the condition. I like to check out and see if I can find when these releases were from, when these pressings were from. Now, Back in Black and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath weren't in the best condition. The records themselves looked a little bit dirty, maybe some scratches, so I didn't go with those. But Sin After Sin looked in real good nick. I'll come on to more about it a little bit later. But I went with it. A nice price that I got it for. I brought it home. We stuck it on. Of course, with this type of place, there's always a little bit of concern that, you know, it might have a scratch on you didn't see or it plays really badly. But it played really well. I stuck it up when I got home and it played great. Again, we'll come on to more of that later. It came with something as well, which I'll show you guys in a little bit, which I don't know if the guy who owned it realised, but it was a nice little surprise find when I checked out the packaging and everything that I got it with. Okay, so as per normal, let's have a little look and see what we have artwork-wise. As you guys know by now, I'm a fan of artwork. I like checking out the artwork on these releases. It was one of the drawing points to vinyl. The fact that the artwork is there, it's in your face, you can see all the detail. You know, not like a small CD or a small digital picture on your iPhone where you need your magnifying glass or anything like that. It's there, you can see everything. So, as I say, Sin After Sin, can you see that? First thing I want to point out is the logo. It's the old style Judas Priest logo. So if you're a fan of Priest's more recent releases, you'll probably think, well, that's not the logo. Is it a bootleg or something? But no. It's the original logo. It didn't last much longer after these, or after this release. But there it is, sin after sin. It's kind of difficult to see. It's there across that temple. And then looking at the rest of it, so we've got that big temple, we've got the evil skull right there. We have this person in black. There's a figure in black down there. Makes me think of the song Black Sabbath, the figure in black. And then we have this person sat down here in some heels, a woman, I imagine. There's a lot going on, as per normal, you know, with lyrics and with artwork. It's your decision. It's up to you guys to sort of decide what you make of it. Decipher the meaning out of it, okay? On the back, we have that temple again in the distance with some light, and then that dark figure is either going in or coming out. I don't know. And then there's a skull. Do you think it's a skull of this person? I'll let you guys decide on that one. Maybe you guys know the meaning behind this artwork. Let me know. Drop me a comment down there. Track listing, and then all the usual. Who's in the band, who mastered it, where it's recorded, etc., etc. Should we look inside? I'm going to show you what I found. So, this is a first pressing from back in 77. So it's got the old school paper in a sleeve, and then a very light, flimsy record comes out of that, so we have to be extra careful. It's very light. So side one, excuse me, there we go. CBS, the label that released the record. Sin After Sin and Judas Priest, and all your track listing. That's side A or side one. Flipping it over, we have the same on the reverse, that orangey yellow logo with CBS. All your matrix and everything on there. Let's slide that back in, especially with these flimsy records. On the sleeve itself, someone has written on Judas Priest, Sin After Sin. That must be a previous owner, I imagine. Doesn't faze me too much, you know. It's the right album. If I opened it and it said, I don't know, Screaming for Vengeance, I might think, that's a bit disappointing, but it doesn't. We're good. And then let me just put this away and I'll show you what else came with it. As I say, I don't know if the guy at the record store knew this was in here. If he did, then he was very lenient on the price. I would have maybe upped the price personally a little bit, but hey. It's a little book. I don't know if it's a tour book or what. But it's quite cool. Let me tell you who was in the band first before we open this up, so it just makes a little bit more sense. So on this release, I'll tell you who was there. As with most bands from this sort of era, there's bound to have been lineup changes, so it isn't the Priest that we know today. Or a couple are, but it's a different Priest than what we know. So, vocals, the metal god, Rob Halford. Couldn't be anyone but. So Rob Halford on vocals. The iconic duo of KK Downing and Glen Tipton. On the guitars, Glen is still with the band. KK, unfortunately, is not. He's off doing his own thing now. Ian Hill, another original member on bass, who again is still with the band. And then on the drums, we actually had Simon Phillips, who is a session drummer, who came in. So the drummer for the previous record was Alan Moore. And he was fired as the band felt he wasn't matching what they wanted the sound to go towards. More double pedal, more intricate drumming. And Alan Moore wasn't the man to be able to do that. So Simon Phillips came in. He wasn't ever officially a member of a band. I think they did offer him the position. But he didn't take it because of scheduling conflicts, but he was the studio drummer for this record. So that was the lineup. This was actually produced as well by Roger Glover. Now, if you recognize that name, it's because Roger Glover is the bass player for Deep Purple. Now, as I say, this was the first major label release for the band. The band wanted to produce this record themselves. The two previous albums on an independent label, they weren't happy with the production throughout those two records. So they wanted to self-produce this themselves. The label said no, we want Roger Glover to do it. He's experienced with production, and the band agreed. Now, Roger Glover was actually fired by Priest because he wasn't really taking them in the direction they wanted to go. So they ended up, for a period, self-producing, but ran into difficulties, at which point Roger Glover was brought back in, but they only had 6 days to record this record. But they did a pretty good job, I would say. It's a good sounding record. So more little fun facts for you there. Let's go back to this. As I say, I think it might be from a tour. Someone has picked this up from a tour that they saw him on. Let me show you what's in there. It's quite cool, I think. So we have a few pictures of a band, all the cliche 80s style shots of a band on the bikes and the leather. This is quite interesting. So we have the band here. Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glen, Tipton, Ian Hill. And then we have Dave Holland, who came in and became Priest drummer for a while. What interests me most here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but we have their birthday for all of them, their location of birth, when they joined the band, but then also their hair and their eye colour. I'm not sure about this. It's very, very odd, but I guess 80s style, who knows. We have some cool pictures of the band from that period live. And then we have little bios as such, written by each band member. There is an autograph. It isn't an actual autograph, just a printed one. But there is Rob Halford and some words written by him. Glen Tipton apparently wasn't feeling in the mood to be writing too much. He's got his gear that he uses there as well. Some more pictures. KK Downing is quite a large bit. Some more pictures of the band live and backstage and whatnot. Ian Hill and then Dave Holland. Some more pictures. We go into colour. Various pictures, quite cheesy. Another very cheesy picture. We have some album reviews, some merch, and then we have various releases, a little bit of information about them. So there's the logo that we went into. Remember I talked about the original logo? That's the Priest logo as we know it now. But yeah, quite a cool little thing that came with it. So I was quite surprised when I found it. But it's a nice little bit of memorabilia as such. So, track listing. Let's talk about track listing. I haven't mentioned that. We'll go through it as normal. So, on this record, side A, we have Sinner, Diamonds and Rust, Starbreaker, and Last Rose of Summer. Flip it over onto side B or side 2. There's a bit of a printing error, a misprint, I think. If I'm wrong, correct me on the comments, let me know. I like to learn. I don't know everything. I try my best. But we have Let Us Pray, and then separately, I'm going to show you, I'm going to zoom right in there. We have Call for the Priest / Raw Deal. I believe that is a misprint. I think it should be Let Us Pray / Call for the Priest. Let Us Pray is kind of an interlude-y sounding part, and then into Call for the Priest. Raw Deal, I believe, should sit on its own. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. That's how I believe it is to be. And then following that, we have Here Come the Tears, and then Dissident Aggressor. And that rounds up our Sin After Sin record. So, track-wise, my favourite Priest album. If you've been following the channel and you're following these videos, you know I'm a fan of all things heavy and fast and solos melt in your face and hard, heavy drums. So, my favourite Priest, I'm going to let you guess. I'm going to give you a minute here to guess what my favourite Priest album is, okay? 3, 2, 1. You got it? It's Painkiller. Painkiller is my favourite Priest album. So, it sounds very different to Sin After Sin, early Priest. But I do like this record. Has moments I'm not as keen on, but it has some real good solid tracks. Sinner and Dissident Aggressor. The first and the last track are the favourite tracks of mine on this, the heavier ones. Sinner, that chorus riff. When we got home from the record store, we put this record on. And when that chorus riff came on, I'm not going to try and repeat it, I'll probably mess it up. But when that came on, my dad and I both started nodding. And if that happens, you know it's good. But that is such a heavy riff. For the late 70s, I can't imagine many bands were producing something quite as heavy as that by, you know, the bands like Sabbath, for example. We go into then Diamonds and Rust, which was a cover. It is a cover track picked by the record label, I think for more commercial sounds. They wanted to get this, especially as it was a major label, wanted to get this record out there, and I think that commercial appeal coming from this cover is what they wanted to lure people in with. It's not bad. It is more radio sounding-esque type of track. It's not my favourite track on the record, definitely. It's not bad. It's not a bad track by any means. Starbreaker, we get back into the good stuff now. The power chords, you know, as I say, there's probably not too many bands in the late 70s really doing stuff like this. There was a few about, but we were starting to get heavier and heavier. And you hear those good, solid power chords on Starbreaker. It's been covered by different artists. I know Arch Enemy covered it back in the day. Again, great track. Next track, Last Rose of Summer, is not a track I really enjoy. I make it a goal of mine to not criticize and slag off bands or tracks that I don't like, because there are people out there that do like these tracks. Someone watching this might think that the Last Rose of Summer is their favourite track ever, and that's absolutely fine, you know, but for me personally, it doesn't do it. I appreciate that Priest have these softer moments where they're almost not power ballads as such, but these ballady type songs, and this is one of them. I appreciate if you've listened to Halford's solo stuff. I mean, he's done a Christmas album, for Christ's sake, so we know that all things hard and heavy he has a break from now and again, like with his Christmas album and like the Last Rose of Summer. It's a bit repetitive and it just doesn't go anywhere for me. I just don't. It's a bit fillery for me. I'm not a massive fan. But that rounds off the first side. This is then onto the second side, and we start off with Let Us Pray, which sounds like a choir of Rob Halford's, where they've done various vocal takes and laid in Halford's voice, and it does. It's like a choir of Rob Halford's, which isn't the worst thing in the world. And this is where I think that printing error is, because then we go into Call for the Priest, which is back into that up-tempo, riffy, typical Priest, the Priest that you would expect, which is good to hear. I didn't want it to start going all ballady for the rest of it. We don't, thankfully. And then we go into Raw Deal, which I actually think is quite an underrated track. I don't think it's a track that's been played in a long, long time live, and I don't think it probably will ever get played live. I might be wrong. I would have to go and check it out on the setlist websites and dig a little further into when it was last played. But it's quite an underrated track. I think it sounds quite different to typical Priest stuff, but we know that Rob Halford is gay. He came out as gay in the late 90s. And I think from what I've read, this was Rob Halford trying to sort of point out that he was gay or is gay. And it kind of went over everyone's heads. But I like this track. It's telling a story. We go back to Denim and Leather by Saxon. I raise the point that I like Biff Byford's storytelling. This is a story as such. It's you know, you follow the narrative of how Rob Halford is saying, and I think it is an underrated track. I'd like to hear it live. I don't think I ever will, but yeah, cool track. Here Come the Tears. This is going back into more ballady material, but it's a damn sight better than Last Rose of Summer. It starts off with that piano-led intro before breaking into these big power chords and, as I say, kind of power ballady feel. Halford's vocals go with that iconic high notes of Rob Halford, and there's more substance to it. I can totally get on board with this type of more ballady track. There's more to it. I thought that Last Rose of Summer just repeated and didn't go anywhere, whereas this goes everywhere, goes somewhere. I think this is a far better track. I much prefer this. And then to round off, Dissident Aggressor. That riff. If you're sat... I mean, when I listen to my records, especially when I'm sort of listening them to make notes ready to do in these videos, I sit and I just listen. I shut my eyes and I listen and try and pick out stuff that I want to talk about, make notes. Man, when that riff of Dissident Aggressor comes on, I just want to stand up and bang my head and air guitar my way around the room. It's such a great riff. It's a track that's been covered by Slayer. It's also been covered by Hailstorm, of all bands. If you're not sure on Hailstorm, go and check out a couple of their cover EPs. They've done some Metallica, they've done some Slayer, amongst others. It's really good stuff, and they do a good job, to be fair, of covering Dissident Aggressor. But it's just riff. It's about the Berlin Wall. Rob Halford was in Berlin. He was looking out over the east side and the west side of Germany, and it's a story about that. And lyrics coming away from that, but it's a hell of a track. It's a great way to end the record. It's a track that they didn't play live for a long time. They've brought back in recent years. It's a great sounding track live. All of these tracks now sound heavier live. You know, when you've done albums like Painkiller, for example, and Firepower and albums like that, you are going to have a more metallic, heavy sound. You know, so all of these tracks do sound a lot heavier these days. But all in all, it's a pretty solid album. As I say, not my favourite, but a solid album. The sound of it. Let's talk about the sound, as we always do with these records. So, as I say, I got it from the record store. It's in pretty good nick. The whole package and the whole... sleeve and everything. I've mentioned before, I like my records to be in good condition. I don't want anything that's ripped and falling apart and scratched to hell. But this is pretty good nick. Considering it's from 1977, there is a little bit of like scuffs and stuff you can see, but nothing too bad. It's in good condition considering how old it is. As I say, there is always a risk by getting first pressings that it will be slightly damaged or whatnot. This wasn't. There wasn't any scratches I could see in the store. There's no background noise, barely at all. No clicks, pops, anything, no crackling. It sounds really, really good. Whoever has owned this previously has really looked after this record, and good job to you. And it sounds good. It's fairly loud. You don't need to turn it up too much to get the volume coming through. It's a damn sight louder than some of the more recent releases. Gajira, Fortitude, I'm looking your way. But it sounds good. Dynamically, it sounds good. It's fairly large on the soundstage. I don't think the solos pierce through quite as much as the Maiden record or the Saxon record that I've spoke about. A couple of others that I haven't spoke about yet, which I'll come on to in due time. Halford's vocals, I like the high, classic, famous Rob Halford high power vocals to soar out of my speakers a little bit more. It'd be interesting to get other, maybe later, Priest records. Considering this is the first on the major label, it'd be interesting to see, get my hands on other Priest records and listen to those and see if his vocals do soar out, because I want them to. It's a very famous classic bit of Judas Priest. You think of Priest, you think of Rob Halford's vocals, probably more than anything else. I want them to come soaring through. They don't quite on this, but it's still a solid sounding vinyl. I'm happy. I found it in the store. I got a little extra book, tour book, I think, with it. It's in really great condition. So all in all, it's some metal horns for Sin After Sin by Judas Priest from old Birmingham, England. Don't forget to subscribe. Smash the like button. Keep smashing that button. Remember to press the bell as well. Click on that bell for all notifications for content coming out. There's more to follow. I've got a whole stack of vinyl coming in to share with you guys. Got my download memories, various other videos on the way. But until then, from me and the metal gods, buy vinyl, listen to vinyl. I'll see you next time.